This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains CitizeNetReporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains, New York, USA. Take your seats, please. The big news in White Plains this week. Dr. Joseph Ricca, White Plains Superintendent of Schools, announced Wednesday that White Plains schools will open starting Monday, March 22nd in phases. Here's Dr. Ricca explaining how and why he feels it is time.
This is what we're looking at right now. And you'll notice it's sort of a pyramid in the number of grade levels that are going to be coming back on the scheduled weeks. This is going to help to allow, first of all, the acclimation or the reacclimation within all of our classroom environments, in our school environments. It's also going to allow us to work the kinks and the bugs out in terms of logistics, when we're bringing children back. And on top of it, it's going to allow us to be able to get our physical plant ready to welcome all of our children back, making sure those layered mitigation strategies are in place prior to the kids coming. So tentatively, and I say tentatively because nothing's ever certain, but I want to make sure that everybody understands this is what we're shooting for with the approval of the committee. Monday the 22nd, integrating or phasing back in kindergarten, 9th and 12th. Remember, we talked about that very first week being kindergarten and 12th grade. Well, we had a 9th grade in there after consultation with our colleagues at the high school, and we think that will be appropriate for the first week. And then you go to spring recess. Now, folks have said, well, why wouldn't we do this right after spring recess? Spring recess is going to do a couple of things. It's going to provide us with a little more runway to make sure that our facilities are ready. It's also going to allow our youngest Tigers to catch a breath if that first week is anxiety provoking. And at the same time, allow our teachers and our faculty and staff members to also catch a breath, which is so important. The following 2 weeks, we will phase in the remainder of the school district, with the week of April 5th being 1st grade, 2nd grade, 6th grade, 7th grade for all 5 days. And then the following week, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 8th, 10th, and 11th. By the week of April 12th, every one of our children will be able to return to school. We're planning for 100% return. We're not going to have 100% return, but we're planning for it. We know moms and dads were concerned about filling out that survey and sending it back in because they didn't want to get locked into a position necessarily. And we absolutely understand that. Like in the past, we'll work with moms and dads and help them to be able to acclimate or reacclimate to the phasing in process. Well, what about the hybrid classes? My kids loved going to class 2 days a week. It was working for us. I know. And I'm sorry that we are not able to attend to that simultaneously with full remote and full in person. But it's important to note that moving away from the hybrid is, in my estimation, a mark of success. We always said that our ultimate goal was to return our children safely as quickly as we could. Keeping a third modality of instruction in place will only prolong the reentry process. So moms and dads who are making a decision, I'm not ready to come back full time just yet, that's okay. You can select full remote, but maybe in 2 weeks I'll be ready to come back full time. That's okay too. Then you reach out to your child's teacher and or principal and have that conversation about where you are as a family, and we'll do what we can to support.
Dr. Ricca will send a letter to all parents today about the details and urges you to write him or call the principals of your children's schools with questions. In White Plains Week caravan of headlines this week, you need to know the state government is in crisis. Andrew Cuomo, the peerless leader, is now being called on to resign. He's been accused of sexual harassment. The press is pillaring him, and 2 investigations are on, and both houses in Albany are forgetting about the budget, with Washington stalling on their stimulus as we do this report. County Executive George Latimer, appearing with human rights advocates, shined a concerned light on attacks on Asian Americans in Westchester County, saying that the district attorney, Mimi Roca, will be investigating such attacks vigorously. In White Plains, New York, USA, the new apartments just keep on coming. The Council approved the zoning plan for 52 North Broadway Monday evening. 2 plans for apartments on 2 sites were referred for review as the Mitchell apartments rise. A zoning change is referred out to build, we believe, residences on Cromwell Place, but there are no details in on that. Funny how there are never many details in White Plains, New York, USA. The Republican Party in White Plains invites you to give them a call if you want to run for County and White Plains Common Council in November. So give them a call, and you'll find the number to call on the White Plains CitizenNetReporter website. More vaccines are on the way. End of May. Westchester continues only getting 10,000 vaccines a week, but most state vaccines are going to New York City and Long Island, where the infection rates are OOC, out of control. Meanwhile, Westchester infections continue to average 415 new positives a day. We will hear County Executive George Latimer's good news on COVID later in the program. The county held a memorial service for the 2,116 persons who have died of the coronavirus in Westchester County in 1 year. The state is in crisis because Governor Andrew M. Cuomo, the peerless leader, is in trouble. Legislators are calling for him to resign over 3 allegations of sexual harassment and impropriety, and assembly persons and state senators are calling for him to resign. And the Attorney General is picking a law firm to investigate that, and those dens of COVID infection nursing homes are back to haunt him over, as reported by the ever-vigilant New York Times. I talked with Stephen Rolandi, a contributor to the program on my website, who knows public administration, and he analyzed where this paralysis of Albany will go. Mr. Rolandi sees the situation this way. The decision to begin an independent legal investigation by the state attorney general was prudent, given that the State Ethics Board, Jay Cope, and the legislature would be conflicted to launch their own investigation. Also conflicted would have been a new investigatory Moreland Commission, which only the governor can initiate, Professor Rolandi says. It is interesting to note, he says, that many establishment Democratic elected officials in New York have declined to call for the resignation. Indeed, governors in the National Governors Association have also declined to call on Cuomo to step down as NGA chairman. If Governor Cuomo is forced to resign, Professor Rolandi says, he would be succeeded by the current Lieutenant Governor, Kathy C. Hochul. Ms. Hochul previously served in the U.S. House of Representatives and was County Clerk of Erie County, Buffalo, New York. Early in her career, she served as a legislative aide to the U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and the state constitution permits the lieutenant governor to serve as acting governor if the governor is disabled or is away during a prolonged absence from the state. He also predicts that Governor Cuomo will not run for another term in 2022. And that means a free-for-all ambitious senators and assembly persons out there. Aren't they all? Meanwhile, White Plains awaits a school budget, and because of the lack of reimbursement for COVID expenses, this is the impact. This report, shown here, part of it was released in December. Already, it reports the state withheld 20% of the aid to schools promised in July and August, and the school district in White Plains has spent $3.5 million in expenditures for COVID and getting schools ready. And now they are faced with a 1.23% tax cap, taking $4.8 million away from the tax levy. And in the last quadrant, you see the projections the school district has made. In December, they were projecting a $231.7 million for the 2021-22 school budget. That's a $3 million increase. However, the 2021-22 budget is balanced. It is projected to hit $235.5 million in 2022-23, $239.2 million in 2023-24, and $243.3 million in 2024-25. Still that inexorable exponential growth. However, enrollment in White Plains schools is declining, projected as under 7,000 by that time. Unless assessments grow and budgets are trimmed, they expect deficits in 2023-24 and 2024-25, but of course the economy will be humding by then, won't it, friends? And still, no aid from Washington to reimburse the state of New York. What is going on? Congress blows hot air. One thing to remember, elected officials are all about them, not you. In his COVID briefing on Thursday, County Executive George Latimer addressed a serious problem and how Westchester County is going to deal with it.
March 4th, we are here for our Westchester coronavirus update, but we're located remote at the restaurant O Mandarin on Central Park Avenue, located in the Hartsdale section of the town of Greenburgh, just across the street from the dotted line with White Plains. We're here because at this restaurant site, we met almost a year ago at the time of the original outbreak of the Westchester coronavirus that first hit Westchester just a year ago. And at that time, we saw incidences of prejudice that was tied to the outbreak of the virus. We saw prejudice-directed anti-Semitism toward the Jewish community, given the first few individuals that were diagnosed with the disease, and also to the Asian American community, because the original outbreak was identified with Wuhan, China. And the response that Westchester County has then and now is to step up against prejudice in any form, against any group of Americans. And we view each of us as our brothers and sisters, that we are together in this country, and we are here together to have all of our boats rise, those of us of any ethnic background. Now, we've spoken many times about prejudice against the African American community, the Latinx community, but we've watched here in the New York metropolitan area a rise in hatred against Asian American individuals. And it doesn't matter whatever the country of origin that individuals come from, that is prejudice against you, not because of who you are as a person, but because of your ethnic identity. And we believe that that's wrong, and we're here today to make a statement at O Mandarin against that. I'm joined by a number of people, and you're going to hear from them, a number of them as well. The owner of this terrific restaurant, O Mandarin, Peter Liu, Tejas Inshallah, who's the executive director of our Westchester County Human Rights Commission, the Reverend Doris Dalton, who is the chair of the County Human Rights Commission, Bob Chow, who's the vice president of advocacy for OCA, which represents many Asian Americans of the Chinese community, Westchester and Hudson Valley, and he's here representing Grace Pan, who's the president of that group, and Bill Kong, also with OCA, and is also a member of our Asian American Advisory Board. Now, last year, for the first time in the history of the county, we created 2 additional advisory boards that represent parts of our community that have been previously unrepresented, with a voice at the table, where we have in the past had an African American and Hispanic American advisory boards. We created one for the Arab American community and one for the Asian American community, and many of their representatives are with us here today. I want to recognize Nandini Anandu from the advisory board, Marjorie Shue, Vincent Young, and Bhavana Pawa, all of whom are on the Asian American Advisory Board. They had a meeting last night with our new district attorney, Mimi Rocca, who laid out her plans to deal with prejudice reflecting really all ethnicities, but in this particular case to Asian Americans. And we are trying very hard now, using the Human Rights Commission, our district attorney, our local police department, to deal with these issues, deal with them swiftly, and deal with them effectively. So I have a series of folks that I want to share a few thoughts, and because it's a little cold and windy out here, you can see I'm well overdue to getting my hair cut. That's the price you pay when you don't stay on schedule. But I'd like some of these folks to speak, and then I'm going to blissfully let them find a warmer place to stay while I give you the formal update of where we are in numbers and in policies relative to this the coronavirus outbreak.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, there have been over 3,000 reported hate incidents across the nation against Asian Americans. The Asian American community is being targeted because of anger, misinformation, and political rhetoric connected to the pandemic. Attacks against Asian Americans are not new. I and many who look like me were victims of hate after 9/11, when there was a huge spike in hate incidents against Asian Americans. An attack against one of us is an attack against all of us. Under the county executive's leadership, the Human Rights Commission has worked to combat hate against the Asian American community since the beginning of the pandemic. The Commission has created an online reporting tool, enabling the community to report hate incidents anonymously. The community can report hate incidents to the Commission through this online portal, by phone, and by email. And I want to emphasize, the 3,000 incidents that have been reported throughout the country are just the incidents that we know about. Studies have shown there's significant underreporting about hate incidents throughout the country, and we need your help to report these incidents. And while we have not heard and we are not aware of an incident like what's happened in New York City involving physical violence, or in Oakland or in Texas, it's very important to report these incidents, because hate incidents can escalate into a hate crime involving physical violence. And if you think about this 3,000 number that have been reported throughout the country, that averages out to 8 incidents a day, one approximately every 3 hours. And I'm reminded of an op-ed in the LA Times that actor John Cho wrote last year that remains timely today, unfortunately. You can't stand up for some and not for others. And like the virus, unchecked aggression has the potential to spread wildly. Please don't minimize hate or assume it is somewhere far away. It is happening close to you. If you see it on the street, say something. If you hear it at work, say something. If you sense it in your family, say something. Stand up for your fellow Americans. The Human Rights Commission wants to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
If you want to see these videos and Mr. Latimer's dramatic close to this part of the conference, you can see them also on my website, WPCNR.com. The White Plains Common Council made big news Monday evening at their Zoom council meeting. They approved the Good Counsel 52 North Broadway development, shown here, 2 views. In Zoom land, the White Plains Common Council approved the 52 North Broadway residential project, which has been going through review for 5 years, and that the new development includes 103 units of assisted living, 232 independent living apartments, 48 multi-family workforce housing apartments, and 28 two-story townhouses. And you can see in the second view, you can see where most of the apartments are going to go. Shown at the lower right on the second slide. I asked if financing was in place for the project and when it would start. I haven't received a response from their spokespersons on these rather important matters. 2 new projects were referred out by the Common Council for review. Owners of this Gateway 2 parking lot have proposed 500 apartments with mixed use, probably as tall as the first Gateway building. No details yet. There you see the church across the street on Lexington Avenue, and as we pan over at street level, you see the big dirt parking lot where they're going to put up these apartments. Then, in this overhead view from atop the Transit Center garage, you can see it is quite an advantageous spot for those who want to commute, if you want to do so. More details to come, but it is great to see some action down in the transit hub finally after these many years. Still, no word on the 4 city-owned parcels right next to the train station after weeks, months, years of waiting for details on the proposals. We wait a lot in White Plains, New York, USA. Now, you do not have to wait for a parking space in the Trans Center garage. A piece of good news. Maybe not for the city. After floor 2, when I was driving up it, no cars were parked there on a work-a-day week Wednesday. 7 empty floors, except for metered parking way at the very top. I'm just saying, have renewals of permits plummeted? Are parking revenues severely impacted? If I was on the Common Council, I'd be asking about this right away. Just a tip, council persons. 2 more projects were referred out. A plan by the owners of 701 Westchester Avenue are proposing tearing down this office building and building a residential building with a retail. Only the second time the city's mixed-use ordinance allowing residential in industrial parks and retail has been taken advantage of. 1133 Westchester Avenue, the first, has broken ground and is moving, but no structures up yet. And a zoning change to the Cromwell Place area was referred out, and this is really mysterious. And it's mysterious because you don't know what they really want to do there and what the zoning actually is. Typical of backup material explanations in White Plains. In Thursday's COVID briefing, County Executive George Latimer pointed out progress continues on lowering the spread of the disease. Here's the County Executive.
Talk about our situation with coronavirus. I'm joined now by Ken Jenkins, who is our Deputy County Executive. We'll go through some of the numbers quickly. The New York State tracker is up for today, Thursday, March 4th. It shows that we have 6,019 active cases. We've seen in the last week sort of a static area around the 6,000 mark of active cases. We've gone a little below that a couple of times at the 5,900, slightly above it. The number of active cases today, 6,019, compares to a week ago where we had 6,145 cases, somewhat more than 100 more cases. 2 weeks ago, we were at 7,030 cases, and way back on January 21st, we had 11,470 cases. So there clearly has been a diminution over the course of the 5 weeks, but we're seeing if we've now reached a bit of a plateau and how that'll happen in the weeks to come. Hospitalization numbers, the most recent number we have is as of last Tuesday, 2 days ago, 330 individuals are hospitalized for COVID, 389 a week ago, 412 2 weeks ago, and roughly a month and a half ago, on January 19th, we had 588 individuals hospitalized. So we're encouraged by the fact that there's been a drop of 250 hospitalizations from 588 down to the most recent number of 330. We have lost in the aggregate 2,116 individuals, fatalities to COVID. Our commemoration service yesterday that we held, which is online for you to watch, really deals with the emotion of that situation. In the last week, we lost 35 individuals. The week before that, we lost 40, and a month ago, we had lost 47 in a week. Every death is a tragedy. We hope that those numbers will continue to drop to the point where we have no additional fatalities. But it does show, again, that the trend line is in the positive direction, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to maintain that, continue to drop that over the next few days and the next few weeks. The vaccination numbers that go through March 3rd, the county center facility is now doing well over 2,000 vaccinations a day as one of the mega centers in the state. We've had great success in being able to vaccinate first and second shots, and now we have over 81,000 vaccinations that have been issued at the Westchester County Center. The two county clinics at Court Street and Westchester Community College have now exceeded 15,000 vaccinations. This has been, in combination, the second largest source of vaccinations, but now we have online the Yonkers facility, and as that starts to kick in, we expect to see those numbers up even more dramatically. Just through those facilities alone, 97,000 plus vaccinations. When you add in the hospitals that are vaccinated, the pharmacies that are vaccinated, the pop-ups that are vaccinated, we're approaching 150,000 vaccinations, which is an important number. And of course, so far with Pfizer and Moderna, 2 shots are included in these numbers. We will see the Johnson & Johnson product come to Westchester in the coming week. That's a 1-shot vaccine, and that will help us reach some of the harder to reach entities, such as the homebound groups and so forth.
The lowering number of hospitalizations is definitely positive. However, the COVID tracker Thursday showed that in the last 7 days through Wednesday, the number of persons testing positive was 2,909, at the figure at the top right. An average of 415 new cases a day, new positives. A 3.89% average testing positive to a day. At a 5% hospitalization rate, folks, and I worry about this, hope everybody else is too. This means that in 2 weeks, you may be getting 150 new hospitalizations a day. Just giving the number hospitalized as going down does not mean anything because it is cumulative, deducting persons leaving the hospitals from COVID after being treated from the new positives. And we don't even know if it's people leaving the hospitals that even don't have COVID. We have to, as Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins said, we cannot lighten up, we need to tighten up. That means masks, social distancing. Don't be a hero. You may very well be a dead hero. Now, taking up to recognize credit where credit is due, Judy Wald, the first woman to run an advertising personal agency, died at 96 this week. She revolutionized Madison Avenue in the 1960s by building up creative directors and art directors and copywriters as stars, and essentially drove agencies into bidding wars for top talents promoted by her aggressive, never take no for an answer style. Flamboyant, confident, she was a model for the successful woman. Be smarter, be aggressive, and do not take any nonsense, but do it nicely. She knew the way to yes was fear of top executives looking bad. Keep that in mind. In his memorial address for Westchester County COVID patients who have died Wednesday, a total of 2,116 Westerites have died as of Wednesday in a year. County Executive Latimer said, and I quote him, "What today is about is remembering those who have lost not as merely an integer or statistic, but as human beings and the valued members of our community that we were. While in this last year we have rallied together in so many ways, it is imperative we also take time to grieve and heal together." This is John Bailey. Good night, Jim Benaroff, and good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains CitizenNetReporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.